Hello. Welcome to Social Studies for this week. I'm so glad you're here. I miss you guys. I wish I could be there teaching you social studies. Today, we're going to be learning about the impact of the oil and gas industry in Texas. Did you know that Texas is famous for all the oil and gas in this state? Lots of resources. We're going to do that so we can identify the impact of oil and gas on Texas economics. And we'll know we've got it if we can explain the effects of oil and gas for Texas. When oil was found in Texas, it was in the early 1900s. It changed Texas forever. Before oil was found, most Texans were just farmers. They didn't make much money. There wasn't much more business, just farming. But let's read about what happened. In the early 1900s, people started finding oil in Texas. Many cars and machines use oil, so it is really valuable. It's also rare in most places, but in some places in Texas, oil poured out of the ground. People flocked into Texas to make money from this liquid gold. Before the oil boom, most people in Texas were farmers. The oil boom changed Texas completely. The economy exploded again as people made tons of money from oil. Even people who didn't work with oil started making more money selling things to the oil producers. People came from all over to get a piece of this opportunity. So even if you didn't work in the oil industry, if you owned a store, a lot of people moved here to work in the oil industry and they would buy stuff at your store. If you were a farmer, a lot of people moved here to work in the oil industry so you could sell more of your crops. It changed Texas completely when they discovered oil. Now, here are some short facts that we're going to learn about today. The development and impact of the oil and gas industry and industrialization and urbanization in Texas. Industrialization is when a culture turns from just farming, from just agriculture, and it starts an industry like producing something like oil. Things change completely. Urbanization is when people move from the country into cities. Now, if you're a farmer, you're probably going to live in the country because there's not much room for a farm in the cities. But if you work for the oil company, most of them set up in the big cities. So the industry of oil caused people to move from the country to the cities. Okay, oil and gas created new products and helped other industries grow. Factories began using oil instead of coal to run their machines, so there was some more money coming in. Demand for workers in these new industries increased the population of urban areas. Like I just said, because the oil companies were based in the big cities, people would move from the country to the big cities. So it increased the urban means city. It increased the urban population. Today we're going to talk about Spindletop. Spindletop was the first big oil well that was found in Texas. It produced more oil than any other oil field in the entire United States. So all of a sudden, there was more oil at Spindletop than anywhere else in the United States. A boom town. A boom town were oil towns that grew due to the need of oil workers, goods, and services. So when they found oil, a town would grow up around it because those people that were working in the oil fields needed stores, they needed houses, they needed cars to go to work. They needed all these things, and so a town would grow up around the oil field. Beginning of significant exploration and production in Texas. After Spindletop, people said, whoa, wait a minute. If there's that much oil in that one spot in Texas, is there oil in the rest of Texas? So people started exploring. Oh, guess what? They did find more oil in Texas, and they started producing more oil, exploration and production of oil in Texas, which brought more people in to do the exploring and the producing. And we're going to talk today about Mr. Petillo Higgins. That's somebody's name. He believed that there was oil at Spindletop, and his determination helped lead to its discovery. Petillo Higgins knew. He just knew in his heart. He knew that he knew that he knew there was oil at Spindletop. Other people gave up. Not Mr. Higgins. He kept looking for it. You'll see in a video how one day, boom, that oil just started shooting into the air. His intuition was right. We'll hear about him. That was Spindletop. He's the one that found Spindletop and was determined that there was oil there, and he was right. So we have some key words. Industrialization is the process that happens when machines begin to do work that was once done by people. Industrialization caused towns to grow larger. Many people left farming to take higher paid jobs in factories in towns. So industrialization means when you have a machine like an oil driller, like an oil well machine that starts doing the work of people, they have to have people to run those machines, but you have to move into a town. That's called urbanization. More areas of the world are becoming cities, and fewer are small towns or farmland. So Texas went from a picture like this, where everything was a farm, to a picture like this, where a lot of people moved to the cities. Spindletop. Remember I told you that Petillo Higgins believed that he knew in his heart there was oil at Spindletop? This is what it looked like when that oil all of a sudden just started shooting into the air like that for 10 days before they could figure out how to close it so they didn't lose all their oil. For 10 days it shot into the air like that. This was the first major oil gusher in Texas during the Texas oil boom in the early 1900s. It's located at Spindletop Hill, just south of Beaumont, Texas. What I want you to do now is I want you to pause this recorded lesson, and I want you to click on the first video. It's about Spindletop and when the oil boom started in Texas. So go watch the video, come right back. Wow, that was pretty amazing the way that oil just gushed out, wasn't it? This is a picture of Petillo Higgins, the man who didn't give up. He who just knew in his heart there was oil on Spindletop Hill. His name was Petillo Higgins, and in 1901, Higgins believed he could find oil under Spindletop Hill in Beaumont, Texas. Higgins found some other investors and he started drilling for oil. At first, they didn't find oil, but Higgins did not give up. With the help of Captain Anthony F. Lucas, he finally succeeded. Petillo struck oil and landed himself in history as the man responsible for the beginning of the Texas oil boom. Sometimes when you know that you know that you know something, it's wise to go ahead and act on that. We're going to watch a video about the life of, about how Petillo Higgins never gave up. I want you to pause this recording and go watch the video about Petillo Higgins. Come right back. Okay, that was a guy that didn't give up, huh? Let's talk about the oil and gas industry. After they found oil at Spindletop, the face of Texas was changed forever. People started drilling oil wells all over the state. By 1928, Texas produced more oil than any other state. All this oil meant plenty of jobs and money for Texans. Oil was a very big business. Many oil companies opened in all areas of the state. Some people moved to Texas and the state's population grew. New oil wells were drilled each day in the years after they found oil at Spindletop. Refineries along the Gulf Coast opened to process the oil. These refineries would then ship the oil to the rest of the world. Today, the oil industry is still an important part of the way the state makes money. Texas's economy still depends on oil production and distribution. The oil industry is not booming like it was at the beginning of the 20th century, but there are still many people who make a living in the Texas oil fields. Now, this PowerPoint was made quite a while ago, I think, I don't know. But last week, I heard on the news that they're finding new oil in Texas. Another oil boom, it looks like, is going to happen in Texas. That means more money for Texas, more people come to Texas, the cities get bigger, the farmland gets smaller. Do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing for Texas? There's more money, but there's not as much farmland. What do you think? The effects of Spindletop. Though the oil boom surrounding Spindletop was largely subsided by the beginning of World War I, its impact would last much longer. The abundance of oil found in Texas would fuel the expansion of the shipping and railroad industries, as well as the development of new innovations, such as automobiles and airplanes. By the late 20th century, oil refining, chemicals, and petrochemicals continued to dominate Texas industry. Through electronics, aerospace, and other high-tech fields had increased in importance. So, Spindletop happened just as the automobile, the car, was being invented, just as airplanes were being invented. Now, what do you need for a car to make a car go? You need gasoline. Guess what gasoline is made out of? Oil. So when people started making cars, that made the oil industry even more important because consumers needed that oil to make gas for their cars. The same thing with planes. The people that own the airlines needed that oil to make the fuel that runs their planes. Now, in Houston, there is a place where NASA is located. NASA is the very heart of the Space Administration. In other words, everything that we send into space, the rockets, the places where people live in space, the space stations, everything we put into space, NASA runs, and NASA is based in Houston, Texas. Why do you think that is? I think I heard some of you say because they need that oil to run the space industry. And you're right. Lots and lots of industries came to Texas because of the oil. The oil changed Texas. What does this all mean for Texas? I think you saw in one of the videos, even though Texans get more money from oil, even though Texas is growing, gets more people because of the oil, that drilling is not good for the land, is it? It causes erosion and other things. What do you think this means for Texas? Texas changed completely because of the oil. Well, oil and gas created new producers and helped other industries grow. Factories began using oil instead of coal to run their machines. The demand for workers in these new industries increased the population of urban areas in Texas. So that's good. More money came into Texas. But are we destroying the land in Texas? Some things, if you have something good, there's a balance of something not so good with it. There's less farmland. There's, when they drill for oil, it sort of messes up the ground, the environment, but it has made Texas a very important state in the United States of America. So there's good and there's bad. And like I said, last week I heard that there may well be a new oil boom in Texas. Some people have found more oil that nobody knew was there before. What's that going to mean? Is that going to mean that the small towns that we have now, those people are going to move to the cities? I don't know. What do you think? You think about what that would mean for people who live in Texas. So, would you rather work on a farm or would you rather work in the oil and gas industry? Why would you rather work on a farm? Why would you rather work in the oil and gas industry? Hmm, that's a personal decision. It's just something for you to think about. How has the oil that was found in Texas changed your life? Do you have relatives that moved here to work in the oil industry? Do you have relatives that used to be farmers and now they live in the city to work in the oil industry? How has the oil that was found in Texas impacted the state, the cities, and your life? You think about it. I'll see you next week. Bye.